Okay. Wait, why can't I see anything? There we go. We're live. We are live. Oh, I'm still alive. Oh, I'm still alive. No, don't open that. What the fuck? What the There we go. Yay! Yay! Here we go. Hi, Aries checkmate. Glad you're here. My hair's still wet, so we'll get to your chart in just a second. It's my daughter's birthday today. And Mars is square Pluto right now. I wanted to talk about that in a little bit, especially in relationship to your charts. And I will get to yours in just a second. Just a second. I want to give a couple other people a chance to arrive if it's in the cards. If it's not, they can watch the replay. And I can just look at your chart and talk about Mars square Pluto because it's quite important. And it's happening right now and over the next few days, you see. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm just letting everyone know that I'm live. So I'm just letting everyone know that I'm live. Oh, I'm still alive. Eh. That's Pearl Jam. I don't really like Pearl Jam. Well, I liked the guitarist, but I just don't like Eddie Vedder's voice. He's a wonderful person, though, apparently. Apparently, he's a very nice man. I don't know what his astrology is. But I'm so glad you're here, Aries. I'll start looking at your chart, probably, and then I'll talk about Mars square Pluto. Or maybe I should do that first and then look at your chart, because we're going to talk about Mars square Pluto in relationship to all the charts of people who come here today. Hi, Nina. Wonderful. I'm glad you're here. Oh, you're from Stockton. Look at you. Stockton, Cali. That can be a rough area. It can be a rough area. I'm from San Diego, which is, close to the border. But anyway, right now, Mars is square Pluto. And Mars will be square Pluto over the next few days. And it's really interesting to me because Mars is violence, aggression, conflicts and all that sort of thing. Passion and drive. And Pluto's control, right? Pluto's control, will, power, domination, death, right? The depths of the underworld. We see Pluto related to trauma, don't we? We see Pluto related to dominance and domineering type personalities. So what I've noticed with this transit, it's like, I think of it as pressure building up. Pressure just building and building and building and then erupting. The word I think of here is eruptions. You see, Mars just gets pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed by Pluto, right? This dominant power that just keeps shoving Mars into a corner. And then Mars finally says, like, fuck it, right? And lashes out, gets quite upset, and erupts. So I'm just concerned about what we're going to see this time. In current events, number one, and in the news and all that sort of stuff, but in our own particular lives. So as we get into your charts, we'll talk about what that looks like for you, okay? By seeing what houses are involved and what houses Mars rules in your chart for each rising sign. So that'll be quite important. Now, in terms of past events, which I think is quite interesting, right? Well, what's happened so far just over the past few days? We just had a big rescue operation happen in Gaza, right? From Israel. Hi, Ms. Colston. How are you? Right? Israel conducted a very large extraction operation in Gaza to rescue 4 hostages. And it cost, according to the Washington Post as of today, 274 lives. So 274 Palestinians were killed to rescue 4 people. And of course, we're so happy that 4 people were rescued. And of course, they shouldn't have been taken hostage at all in the first place. But how disproportionate. That's a massacre, and no one in the news is really mentioning those big numbers. So much as they're talking about the jubilation from the extraction of the hostages, which we all support. But this is extremely disgusting. And the pictures that I saw, some of them were just extremely disgusting and graphic. And it's interesting to note this point in time because the last time Mars was square Pluto was when? October 7th, 2023, when the Hamas attack on Israel took place, right? And for those of us who don't remember, and I sure believe you do, and I hope you do, that Hamas attacked Israel, killing around 12 to 1,300 civilians, if I'm not mistaken, or 12 to 1,300 people total, I suppose. At least those were the numbers I was aware of. Don't quote me on that necessarily. But so it was very interesting to see this morning, number one, that all this had just happened. And number two, to reflect on the fact that last time we had this transit was when this conflict sort of erupted. The eruption, right? Eruptions. And then the time before that we had Mars square Pluto was July of 2022, which you might remember was the July 4th Highland Park massacre in Highland Park, a suburb of Chicago, Illinois, right? And this was carried out by a right-wing gunman. I say gunman, but the person was like 19 or 20 years old. Basically a kid as far as I'm concerned. If they're too young for me to date, you know. I mean, to me, anyone under 25 is a kid, basically. I shouldn't say that. You know what I mean? But then we had another 2 people shot to death in Highland Park a couple days ago. So all these weird little things happening, you know. So just beware of this. And, you know, now we'll start looking at your charts, but it's just an interesting backdrop because we see this transit associated with violence, don't we? We see it associated with mass shootings. We see it associated with, you know, terrorist attacks or whatever else. But usually it's where pressure has been building up. And if you think about the Israel-Gaza situation, you could think about it as a Mars-Pluto type thing. For those of you who don't know the history, it's been going on for 75 years or 76 years since 1948. And I'm not going to talk about the history. But imagine that pressure building up for so many years. And then we see these hard squares from Mars to Pluto accompanying or correlating with these big eruptions. So let's keep our eyes peeled over the next few days and see what else we notice, if anything. We've already noticed a few things, right? There's already been mass shootings, right? Or rather, some shootings. I don't know if any mass ones happened yet. And then also big attacks, right? Big eruptions of violence. Yes? So just keep our eyes out. And then also speaking of Gaza, there was a giant protest in Washington, D.C. You see? Giant protest in Washington, D.C. over the past day or so. It was yesterday. I believe, you know, pro-Palestinian protesters took over all of Pennsylvania Avenue around the White House. So this is some big momentous stuff. And yes, Aries Checkmate will look at your chart, and you asked, how long will this gnarly transit be with Mars? Well, let's look at the fun chart, shall we? Let's look at the fun chart. So here we are. Let's go back to today. This is today. We see Mars has just gone into Taurus, is at 3 minutes Taurus. And see Mars is already forming that square to Pluto, right? And let's go forward a day. We're getting closer. And then, see, I always say it's around 5 degrees leading up and 5 degrees leading out. So I would have said 27 degrees or so. So June 6th is when I would have started thinking of it as being especially relevant. June 5th, I guess. June 5th. Okay. And then, boom, here we are tomorrow. And it perfects on Tuesday, the 11th. And then 5 degrees out, so to like 6 degrees Taurus, I guess. So I would say until June 18th. We'll be seeing the effects of this until June 18th. So just be aware, that this is sort of the general backdrop that's going on below the surface. But let's look at your charts and how this affects you. Cat, get out of my bathroom. If you want to go in, you're going to go and you're going to stay in for a little bit because we're not doing this right now. We're doing this. He's such a, he rules the day, doesn't he? He rules my life. Both of these guys do. It's like constant politics with these cats. You think politics in general in the United States is volatile. Cat politics is even more so. I have to lock one in one room while he eats and the one in the other room while the other one eats, Because they have different types of prescription food. But none of that really matters to any of you. Let's look at Aries checkmate. Or, I forgot, Ms. Colston is a channel member. She's a member of my channel. So really quick, we're going to look at Ms. Colston and what Mars and Pluto mean for her. We're going to look at what Mars, Aries checkmate says, I love cats. I love cats too, just these cats are especially a pain in the ass. They are. These cats are motherfuckers, I'm telling you. They really are. I'm sorry for cussings. I'm having my coffee. Yeah, it's my daughter's birthday today. It was my birthday a week or 2 weeks ago. So it's like Gemini stuff one after another. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. You are so sweet. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. Typical witches and their cats, my brother says. My brother Rory is here. Thank you for being here, Rory. Yeah. And I'm a real witch, or at least something that rhymes with witch. So, well, here's Ms. Colston. So we know that Pluto is in Aquarius right now, conjunct Ms. Colston's Venus. And Ms. Colston, I always say this, but your Venus is conjunct my ascendant, and you and I would probably have a fun time together, Nina says, cuss all you want. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway. Oh, gosh, Ms. Colston. Look at you. Your mom says my hair looks so pretty. Thank you. It's still wet. It's still wet from the shower. So, I'm seeing another young lady today later. So, just trying to get nice and I'll probably put some other stuff on rather than just a tank top, But yes, I'm seeing a nice young lady today. Another one tomorrow. And another the next day. It's like every one of my days off is consumed with romance. Which is the way I want it to be, When I'm not with my daughter, I want to... But see, I have to get more productive and be getting more of this stuff done. So anyway, we've got Pluto on top of your Venus, which is, you see, this is already quite personal, right, for you. And Mars has just left your 10th house and has entered your 11th. And we already talked about this, Ms. Colston, but how Mars entering the 11th house often starts conflicts with friends and associates. Or you could get sort of harassment, right? Public harassment, or people are just not very nice. Like for me, it often takes place on social media or out and about, right? Instead of having secret admirers, you have open detractors, right? Like that whole thing about open enemies, Enemies is really sort of a 6th house phenomena. But Mars is also enemies too, you see. So, and the sixth house gets a lot of its meaning from the fact that Mars is happy there, rejoices there, according to ancient astrology. So Pluto will be square Mars here, Mars in Taurus, you see. So Mars is also square your Venus at the same time. And this, this can be quite difficult because on the one hand, it can make us quite amorous, right? Sex is sort of highlighted also because Pluto's on top of Venus for you. And there can be sort of there's been a couple indications of this in your chart that we've talked about. But suddenly being interested in romance and all that sort of stuff, or at least sexual liaisons, And Mars square Venus sort of exacerbates that tension a little bit, right? It can cause tension in relationships. From the fact that we want to assert ourselves a lot more. We want what we want when we want it. We get the Veruca Salt complex, which I always have. I want you Oompa Loompa now, Daddy. Right? And the fact that Pluto is in your 8th house now, this is a 20-year transit. It's a backdrop for a long time, and it's not something to pay a lot of attention to, especially since he's not in an angular house. But you can see Pluto being the emissary of the underworld, and the 8th house also being associated with hidden trauma and stuff that we stuff down. So it's like things are being pulled up, right, from the depths. Maybe at this point in your life, it's like stuff that you thought was long dead and gone, But now it turns out that stuff bubbles to the surface. And Mars brings it out, doesn't he? And Mars rules what? Your 10th house, as well as your 5th house. So you see both romance in a way, because of the 5th house, sex and fun, enjoyment in general. Sometimes we see sports, competition, all that sort of stuff. Right? And you have a 5th house north node, so it's sort of characteristic, isn't it? But then Mars ruling the 10th house also indicates that you have to watch unfortunate recognition, right? Bad attention. Some people like me say there's no such thing as bad attention. I want it all. But no, there is bad attention. When you get a bad reputation, or when people call you all sorts of awful things, or when things pop out, right, in your public life that you didn't intend to, right? That's another thing that happens. So just watch it, because this is a relatively brief transit, right? We're talking 10 days or so. Let's just call it 2 weeks in general, because we've had some of this leading up since the 5th. And we're going to have it leading out for another, 9 days or so. So we'll call it a 2-week window that more or less started on the 5th and goes till about the 18th. More or less, right? So this is power struggles in general, right? When we see Mars square Pluto, as we said earlier, eruptions. Now, eruptions don't just take place on the national scale or the international scale, of course, like we mentioned earlier, but eruptions also take place in our personal lives. So look at your own life and experience since at least October, early October, when the last one happened, and see what pressures have been weighing on you. Has anyone been trying to lord their power over you? Has anyone been trying to control you or your actions? Have you felt suppressed, demeaned, oppressed? Perhaps. Have you felt like people have been trying to manipulate you? Pluto is manipulation, you see. Pluto rules all the, those fun psychological abusive type conditions and relationships, things like gaslighting, making you feel crazy, right? Trying to convince you that your experience or your feelings are incorrect or wrong. And coercion, right? Pluto doesn't always like consent. Remember the story of Pluto and Persephone, or rather Hades and Persephone? You could really say Pluto or Hades regardless, because at a certain point in Greek mythology, they became interchangeable, right? It's like Hades eventually became more the name of the place, and Pluto eventually became more the name of the person who ruled the place. Yeah? And remember in the story of Hades and Persephone, Persephone gets kidnapped by Hades, but only after Zeus says it's okay. Zeus was her father, right? And Zeus says, oh yeah, Hades, it's great you like my daughter. Just go ahead and take her. You know, it's okay. I'm her dad. It's all good. Of course, her mom, Demeter, was not happy, right? So Demeter throws a fit on the surface, right? And everything starts to die, and she plunges the world into perpetual winter, right? No one's having sex. No one's making babies. Nothing is growing, right? So people are starving and dying, essentially, on the surface. And so Persephone, over time, grew to love Hades, right? And they ended up having one of the more, I guess, healthy or constructive relationships of the whole Greek pantheon, if that's even a thing, because the whole Greek pantheon was made up of awful, awful people, or gods, right? Because gods were just modeled on the awfulness of people. So Zeus was a fucking rapist all the time, you know? And yeah, Hades took Persephone against her will, which was the custom of the day. Doesn't make it right, right? I believe on Greek pottery that the symbolism for captivity was the same as the symbolism for marriage, right? Because that's all it was. Marriage was captivity for women, you see? But Persephone grows to love Hades, doesn't she? And what happens? She recognizes that mom is throwing a fit up on the surface, and she says, yo, dude, I love you. I love you, but you know what? My mom is like killing people up on the surface with perpetual winter. She's being a homicidal Elsa. Right? Let it go. Let it go. Gotta go back to the surface and stop perpetual winter. So Hades is like, yo, okay, I get it. I get it. And she says, yes, I'm coming back. I love you. I love you. It's all good. And Hades says, okay, I trust you. I believe you. Here's some pomegranate seeds to take with you. And for those of you who know the myth, remember the pomegranate seeds bound Persephone to the underworld, didn't they? Pluto didn't have to do that. He was super insecure. He was afraid she wasn't coming back, you see. And giving her the pomegranate seeds was manipulation. And you may recall the way the myth finishes, essentially, is that Persephone spends 6 months on the surface with her mom Demeter during the spring and summer months when things are growing and everything like that, and the birds and the bees are pollinating each other and people are fucking, right? I mean, for me, fucking should be like a 365-day affair. But you see what I'm saying? And then the other 6 months of the year she spent in the underworld with Hades, her love, right? Queen of the underworld she was, yes. Persephone. And those were the winter and fall months, you see. Of course. So, but the key word here is manipulation. She manipulated, or sorry, he, Pluto, manipulated Persephone into staying with him. And so these are the types of things that we see in Plutonian relationships that take course over a long time, is people begin to manipulate out of fear. Fear of abandonment, oftentimes, right? He was afraid that Persephone was going to abandon the underworld. So that's what we have to be careful of, that we let our fears start to take hold of us and our desires and our actions, so that we start manipulating people. Right? We have to learn to let things go. That's a big thing with Mars-Pluto transits, is we learn to let things go. One of the images I have in my head with the Mars-Pluto square, especially with synastry, and synastry, this is rough, right? But with the Mars-Pluto square, who else remembers Peter Pan, the Disney movie, Peter Pan? Remember when Captain Hook is like trying to escape the crocodile at the end, and the crocodile keeps, biting him and taking him under? And remember, Captain Hook is like trying to squeeze out of the jaws. That's what Mars square Pluto's like to me. Mars is like Captain Hook trying to squeeze out of those jaws. And he erupts, doesn't he? It's the eruption. So my advice for all of you, including Ms. Colston, is that we start to monitor or observe or be aware of our volatility, of our emotions in general, because we're going to feel like we're backed up into a corner during this time. It's just sort of the way it is. And that's where we see the eruptions. We see people or groups or whatever with feelings of weakness or feelings with oppression or an inability, right, to be listened to or acknowledged or whatever. When people get desperate, they do desperate things. And that's what I think of with Mars square Pluto. I think of the exasperation of desperation, which leads to explosion and eruption. Eruption. So in our own lives, this can take place in all sorts of little things, can it? Like waiting in line at the gas station or, at your food place or whatever. For service workers, this is rough. Because for service workers, you're often on the receiving end of things, right? You got the Karen in line barking at you and all that kind of shit. You see? So just be aware of that. Okay, we'll go on to the next chart in just a second. But I want to reiterate generally that this is a time when we really have to be cautious and aware of when we're starting to let pressure build up. It's a lot better to let off a little bit of steam more frequently than to allow pressure to build up and then explode on people who may not even deserve it, right? We often hurt the ones we love, don't we? Because we feel more comfortable around them. A sense of familiarity sort of allows us to be mean, to be mean to our friends, family, and loved ones. And for Ms. Colston, with Mars going into your 11th house here, you really have to watch exploding on your homies. Watch exploding on your homies at this time or trying to manipulate them with your own idealistic, values or whatever. So, but now let's go to Nina. We have Nina because Nina did a wonderful donation, and then we have Aries checkmate. And then we have Aries checkmate. So we will get to you all really, really, really quickly. So here, let's go to the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. It reminds me of Step Brothers. Anyone see Step Brothers? The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. I'll do you from behind while I'm drinking sangria. Anyway, I don't know if I can say that on here. I'm going to have to edit this shit out later because I was going to use this as like another video too, You're welcome, Ms. Colston. I hope that's useful information for you. Stockton, California can be a dicey place, at least as far as I remember. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. I do you from behind while I'm drinking sangria. It's better than thinking about Columbus, isn't it? Nina. Not Nina. Okay, well, how is your name pronounced? Nina. Oh, okay. Nina. See, that sounds more like a 49er. Nina. That's a pistol, isn't it? Got my Nina. Better use your Nina. That's good for Stockton, too, having your Nina, right? That sounds probably kind of bad, but... Nina. So Nina is a Leo rising. Gosh, that's going to drive me nuts. Nina. I'm sorry, I'm just so not used to it. Nina. Makes me think of the San Francisco 49ers. That's what it makes me think of. Oh my gosh, Mars in the first house. Look at you. Mars rules your 9th house. And Mars rules your 4th house. So this will be quite interesting because Mars now has just entered your 10th house. Pluto's in your 7th. So these are all angular houses highlighted, just like me. Tech Nina. Yeah, you know, Tech Nina. Stay away from one of those. There was a rapper actually from your area I used to listen to named X-Rated, and then Brother Lynch Hung. I still listen to them anyway, by the way, but X-Rated had this song called Use Yo Nina. Use Yo Nina. And then I think Brother Lynch used similar terminology and stuff. It's just interesting. And they're both from your area, I believe. From Stockton area. That's interesting. Anyway, so we have Pluto in the 7th house. And remember, it's just a general 20-year transit. But, you know, relationships are somewhat going through a tumultuous upheaval in many ways. So 20 years is a long time. But you can see the relationship between Mars and Pluto here is focusing on these Mars-ruled houses. Oh, Nina says that she loves Brother Lynch and X-Rated. Yeah, I love them too. It's like, yeah, it's like nasty rap, I guess. It's like nasty rap. You know. It's like, yeah, it's nasty rap. You have to have a certain kind of stomach for that. So Mars entering the 10th house already starts conflicts with authority figures, right? And so if you are in relationships, in a long-term partnership or marriage, there's going to be tensions over this. And you're going to want to be very careful because the stuff, it may feel like your significant other or partner has slowly pushed you into a corner over time. And maybe it's not all their fault. We can't just blame things all on one person or ourselves for that matter. You see, it takes two to tango in a relationship, or more if there's more people involved. But over time, we can allow ourselves to get manipulated or pushed or cajoled, and we get into this position where it's like, no, I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm not taking it. We're not gonna take it. No, not gonna take it. Right? Dee Snider, Twisted Sister. And we do what? We explode. And explosions with our spouses sometimes can be warranted. Sometimes we're standing up for ourselves. But other times we have to judge whether it was worth it or not. Because it can lead to bigger conflicts, you see? It can lead to bigger conflicts. So the other thing you have to be aware of, with Mars ruling your 4th house and being in the 10th house now, right? Oh, Mars ruling the 9th rather and ruling the 4th. You see, it's going to take an ideological bent, most likely, and you have your moon in the 9th house too. So you're probably quite a quite passionate person about what you believe and your values and all that fun stuff, right? So just be cautious about how aggressive you get with regards to your beliefs or values with particular people. Sometimes it might make sense, right? It might make sense sometimes. Sometimes you need to stand up to authority figures, right? Sometimes it's important. Often with this transit with Mars in the 10th house, I see people having eruptions at work. I see fights with bosses. I also see bad reputation kind of stuff where we, act a fool in public, or we draw some unfortunate attention, some unwanted attention, right? Where people are paying attention to us that we don't want, right? And being that it rules the 4th house too, it could involve the parents, the family, the private life, the father, past or legacy. So oftentimes when I see the 4th house ruler going through the 10th house like this and then square Pluto, is we see things from the personal life, the private life, being drawn into the public eye. So embarrassing things. That's the big thing, is watch out for embarrassing things coming up, You could get public embarrassment. Public embarrassment in some way. We need just to be careful about that. Ask yourself before you do something, do I want everyone to know me for this? Do I want to be seen doing this in public, It's usually a pretty easy question to answer. No, no. And if you don't feel right having something that you've done plastered all over the internet, it's probably a good idea not to do it. Because that's the consequences of our decisions, oftentimes. Especially for someone with a first house Mars like that. For someone with the first house Mars conjunct the North Node in the first house. First house Mars and first house North Node together like that sort of show that someone is learning about someone is really fervently developing a sense of personality and personal strength, right? Standing up for themselves. This is sort of indicating assertiveness. And for an 8th house Pisces sun, sometimes assertiveness is very important to cultivate. So, this can be a very empowering transit for you in some ways, right? Because you're probably so used to being like everyone's confidant. And this transit sort of encourages you to say no and to draw very firm boundaries. Nina says, I call out bad behavior at work and people hate it. It's hard for me to make waves. I'm not on good terms with my parents either. I mean, yeah, so you'll probably see an eruption with parental type stuff. But your sort of goody two-shoes type thing, which isn't bad, I'm just using a phrase. That tendency you have to call out stuff, which is a sense of fairness, right? A sense of fairness type thing that we do see with, Leo rising types. Mars in the first house. That's not fair. I'm calling that out. So on the one hand, even though, Pisces is not sort of the most assertive sign in the world, Mars in the first house and Leo can be. Now Mars is retrograde, of course. So that puts a damper on it. But you see here, the key thing about all this is standing up to authority and holding your own boundaries. Just be careful because sometimes it's really not worth it. You don't want to lose your job. Not everyone needs to quit over something. Like we're having State Department officials quit right now over Biden's, Gaza policy. So anyway, that's the big thing I'm seeing for you right now with all this stuff. Now, in general, Jupiter's going to be in your 11th house. So this should create, positive connections and results from connections with people who care about you, support you, or like-minded people who enjoy your work or who share your common values, right? Like-minded people. So there's an underlying backdrop of positivity with all this. Just be aware that there's an eruption going on over the next few weeks, right? Let's go to the next person's chart, which is Aries checkmate. I sure hope you're still here, Aries checkmate. I sure hope you're still here, sweetheart, because we're getting to you right now. Nina, I hope that was useful. I hope that was useful, Nina. Get ready, Aries checkmate, because we're about to do you. And I guess I'll mention too for Nina, Venus is about to go into your, towards the end of this transit, Venus is going into your 12th house, which after some potential eruptions is some much needed healthy seclusion, right? Being by yourself, enjoying your own company for self-care, right? Self-care, talking to your therapist and stuff like that. Okay, wonderful. Now on to Aries checkmate. Aries checkmate, not Aries coffee mate. Speaking of coffee mate, I needed a sip of coffee. Aries checkmate. Aries checkmate. March 3/27, 1987. 1987. And what's everyone think about this time? Like, I need to start doing 3 to 4, astrology live streams a week and 3 to 4, other live streams a week. So I need to start really holding myself to a schedule. Does daytime, is that work for a lot of people? I know for international people, this might work better because there's all sorts of crazy time zones people are in all over the world. Oh, excuse me, 12:29 p.m. Oh, excuse me. Hamilton, Canada. I have so many Canadian clients and homies. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, and all thy sons command. So, yeah, lots of Canadians. Oh, and please like the stream. Like this stream, please, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And yes, thank you to Nina for the donation, for the tip. Please, I really, 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 really appreciate tips. Please, please, please. You can do it through Super Thanks below, or you can find my PayPal information in the description, or you can donate to my Patreon, which I need to get running again. But Aries is a Cancer rising. Like our friend Ms. Colston. So we have some of the same things going on here. Oh, and you have Venus in Aquarius too, but very late Aquarius, you see. Your Venus is trine my North Node, so we'd probably still have a good time. Oh, Pisces moon, you poor Pisces moon. I think I've talked a lot about Pisces moon before, and Pisces moon in the 9th house conjunct Mercury. So this is someone with a decidedly mystical type bent who, as a child, probably was asking the big questions. Why are we here? What is God? What is the nature of existence? Why is my cat meowing in the bathroom? Come on now. Yeah, come on. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Oh, these two brothers. These two cat brothers, I tell you. So anyway, these kind of people are often annoying as children because especially if they have religious parents or families, right? 9th house ruler is Jupiter in the 10th house. So I wonder if religion or academia or law or any of that has anything to do with your public life or your career. Because the 9th house does rule all that stuff. You know, academia, higher learning, universities, the legal profession, right? Judgment and all that. But also astrology, right? Spirituality, religion, all that kind of stuff, right? I'm an astrologer and I've got some big 9th house stuff like that. Which is quite interesting. So, I mean, the fact that you have these kind of... I mean, I'm assuming I'm correct here. I'm assuming I'm correct here. So, the fact that you have all these sort of inclinations in the first place, right, suggests that that's probably going to be where, you know, you get some conflicts, right? Where you get some conflicts. No, I just found out I'm a psychic medium. Lol. Oh, I'm a psychic large. So, you know. Yeah, you know, the whole medium phenomenon is something that is very dicey for me because I really don't believe in it as it stands for most people. I see a lot of nonsense in that whole community. I'm not saying people don't have psychic experiences and all that sort of stuff. I just don't think anyone communes with dead people. I don't think anyone does because I don't think that actually is a thing. Because I don't believe in an afterlife nor a God. But how does this work? This works by putting your birth info in the chat, and then I do chart readings based on that. Said the cat in the hat. Why do you treat me like that? The sun is not out. It is too wet to play. So we sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. I sat there with Sally. We sat there, we two, Well, I said how I wish we had something to do. Too wet to go out, too cold to play ball. So we sat in the house. We did nothing at all. And then the Cat in the Hat comes in. So, no, but I'm not saying that your experience isn't valid or anything like that. I'm just saying it's a difficult thing for me. But you can see indications of psychic experiences in the chart. And you have a couple indicators of that. Number one, you are a Pisces moon, which has a natural sort of empathy, right? And please, for birth information, I need birth date, the time of day, and the city, date, time, city. So anyway, plus you're a Cancer rising. The moon rules your rising sign, is in the 9th house, right? The 9th house is all this spirituality, values, right? I have my first house rule in the 9th house. Usually our whole life motif, right? Because the moon represents you, right? Represents your essential nature in this whole philosophical thing. And people always say, like, how can you not believe in God and be an astrologer? I'm like, easy, because I'm a materialist and I've seen this all work materially. But consciousness is still the final frontier, isn't it? Regardless if it's a epiphenomenon of the physical brain or not, it's still the final frontier. And we have a lot to understand about our own self-consciousness, you see? No, this is not a Vedic reading. I do not practice Vedic astrology. I don't. I've never hung out with a ghost or a ghoul. I'm not going to get into that. Not going to get into that. You see, I'm a materialist and an empiricist. I go off of what my senses can show me and what facts can prove. So that's what I'm interested in. But psychic experiences are a real phenomenon, right? And we have Pluto trine the moon here. My little brother who's on the chat has Pluto trine the moon. And I hope he doesn't mind sharing, but he's had plenty of psychic experiences. And Pisces lends itself to that, doesn't it? Right? My brother's a Pisces Venus and Pisces rising with a Cancer moon. So water moons have the similar sort of thing where they're very receptive, you see? The other thing about Pisces moon is it gets very, I hate the word empathetic, but you see what it means? It's like there's a natural awareness of emotions and moods and feelings in general. So we get wrapped up in the tension around us. And it's really important to take time out by yourself to untangle and unravel your own sense of emotion and moods from those of other people, because they really, really, really can affect you. And I always joke that, Pisces moon is sort of like a mop that sucks up all the dirty water and emotions around it. But the big difference is you can wring out a mop where it's a lot harder to wring out a Pisces. And you only do that through alone time and self-reflection and feeling yourself. And by self-reflection, I don't mean thinking. I mean allowing yourself to feel things. And thinking isn't your best suit anyway with a Pisces Mercury. Although there's so many geniuses with Pisces Mercury, you see. It can be a very my little brother, Rory. I don't know why I say little, he's 37. But very genius type mind, right? The ability to make lots of connections. It's just not very good at articulating all those connections. But you can see them and feel them in your mind. And you can understand things better than you can explain them, perhaps. I make fun of Pisces Mercury as like, putting Vaseline on the lens of a video camera, to sort of make everything kind of dreamy. Or if anyone remembers those Magic Eye posters from the 90s, like where it's all kind of jumbled up static, but when you stare at it for long enough, it's like, oh, there's a sailboat, right? You dumb bastard, that's not a schooner, that's a sailboat. Sorry, that's from Mallrats. But you know what I'm saying here. But with specifically this transit, this is your Mars return. Mars has entered your 11th house. You already have a tendency probably to get into conflicts with friends and all this sort of thing. Oh, but really quickly back to the psychic medium stuff and psychic experiences. I mean, you should do your best. You should do your best to allow yourself to have these experiences, of course, and explore them. But a big thing I always tell all my clients who have psychic experiences is remember to keep your feet on the ground. Because the spiritual path is littered with the shells of broken minds. People who allow themselves to go off into crazy town. And what do I mean by crazy town? I mean by allowing yourself to believe everything that you think, even in the presence of evidence to the contrary. You see? And I know this from experience, where we go off into crazy land. I did spiritual groups for many years. I had psychic experiences of my own. You see? And did I already just say, I did spiritual groups for many years, you see? I've been involved in spiritual work for almost 30 years, you know, since I was 12 years old, consciously at least. And it's easy to get drawn off into things. Not everything you feel or think is correct. And so that's where we have to reflect on ourselves and we have to inquire of ourselves. How do we know what we know? Now, we allow ourselves to feel things. Shani says the whole open your mind too much and your brains fall out sort of thing. Yeah, we're talking about critical thinking. We're talking about critical thinking. You can't just let yourself be at the whim of every feeling that comes up. We have to use our minds as like a searchlight, as a tool, right? Like Christ in the Gospel said, I did not come to bring peace but a sword. The sword in the tarot is a symbol of air, the mind, the ability to distinguish between this and that, the unreal and the real, right? There were 3 keynotes in in different esoteric traditions. And I believe in Indian philosophy, it says something similar. But, you know, we're led from darkness to light, right? From unknowing to knowing, right? That's darkness to light. From unawareness to awareness. And then we're led from the unreal to the real, right? We have to distinguish between what is false and what is true. And that's where minds come in, right? The distinguishing between truth and falsehood. You see? And honesty with ourselves. The other thing about Pisces moon, and what I see with the whole mediumship thing, is oftentimes we're not super honest with ourselves. We run off on a certain thought or feeling or something people tell us, and we assume that it's true, and we operate from that, right? But if we are on a spiritual path, if this is something that's important to us, it can't be bullshit. It can't be faked. This has to be a real, earnest, sincere inquiry into existence, right? So it's great to have all these things. It's great to have these experiences, but we have to put them within the framework of a cohesive worldview or understanding, right? Now, I can articulate mine to you, but that's not helpful. I'm just cautioning you to, question everything, including our experiences. You see, I interpreted some of my spiritual experiences when I was younger. Oh, those were angels and this was God. But I don't know. And that doesn't help anyone necessarily, right? The whole point of mediumship also, if there is a point, it's to be of service to people, right? What can we do to be of service to people? So if you find that there are particular insights that are quite useful or that you think are useful, offer them up voluntarily. Like, hey, that's why we take clients, right? People come to us. We don't go and just tell people shit, But the key thing, especially for all this Pisces stuff, is learning to use the mind. And you have Sun conjunct Jupiter, which is very sort of gregarious, expansive, and it has a sense of destiny, right? Like, I was meant to do this. You just have to watch out that you don't have an overestimation of your purpose in the world, because everyone has a relative destiny. and everyone has a relative importance and purpose. We also have a relative insignificance, like every grain of sand on the fucking beach, you know? But anyway, the summary of that is explore your mediumship. Explore it, enjoy it as a gift of your constitution that you were born with to a certain extent, right? But also don't let it drag you into the ocean, into the ocean of the fantasy, right? Into the Neptunian nocturne, right? Where we can get bewildered and bedazzled by all sorts of fantastic ideas. This is the key central point. Anything that takes you away from investigating your own sense of consciousness and existence is ultimately a distraction. Anything that takes you away from investigating your own sense of being and consciousness is ultimately a distraction. Even astrology, if it takes you away from that, should be a tool for this. But, you know, I use it for all sorts of stupid shit too. So just notice here that you're going to be having your Mars return, right? Being that it's an unhappy Mars ruling the 10th and the 5th house, I imagine you might have difficulties when it comes to your professional life or your career, right? You may have had a bad reputation or something, and you may have difficulties when it comes to having children or a romantic life as well. So, because Mars is unhappy. At this time, though, Mars going into your 11th house will create more schisms over these desires for achievement from the 10th house, perhaps. Desires for recognition. Perhaps your career change or your life direction change that may be going on right now upsets some other people or alienates you in some way or causes disruptions in friendships or relationships, you see. So that's something to be aware of. Now, in the midst of all this, Jupiter's going to be in your 12th house for a while, right? For about a year. And this indicates needing to work on yourself, going into those hidden depths of your psyche and your personality to find out what it is that's been holding you back. You know, when Jupiter tours the 12th house, and this goes for Ms. Colston too, we often have to address self-destructive behavior. We have to address stuff that we did to ourselves that was sabotaging us, right? Jupiter going through the 12th house is having to come to terms with self-sabotage and to address it, to address self-sabotage, you see? So anyway, I hope that's useful, Aries checkmate. I also hope that I didn't upset you or your beliefs in some way. I just don't believe in anything except my own experience and what can be proven through science and observation. You know, and then I have my political ideologies, which are beliefs, I suppose. But see, none of that, I don't think any of that is necessarily against or antithetical to psychic experiences. I think it just challenges us to question them and where they're coming from. You see? Not every hunch we have about someone is correct. That's gaslighting. Trying to tell people what they're thinking and feeling, that's gaslighting. I had an ex-partner try and tell me stuff about like my family and my past and everything else. You know, and at a certain point, it's like, well, you don't know, you know, and no one can tell me this stuff. No one can tell me how I'm feeling. No one can tell me my experience because they weren't fucking there. Just like I can't tell you your experience, Aries, and I might be sounding like just a dumb bitch right now, you know. But it's important to at least question these things, and I know this from my experience, because we reinterpret everything through a personal lens, you see. Everything gets, thank you for your advice. I'm a former skeptic and believe that my reviews from others, good for you. I'm a former non-skeptic. I'm a former medium type, right? So, good for you for being a skeptic. You don't have to get personally reactive to anything I say either, you know. Just because I say I don't believe in a lot of that stuff doesn't mean that that necessarily fits your experience or worldview. Just saying, watch out with trying to tell people what they think or feel. Lisa Haley says my personal lens is clouded. All of our personal lenses are clouded. We all have clouded personal lenses. Just like I'm not religious, but I quote scripture like Satan because I was raised very religious, very Catholic, and I still get a lot of wisdom out of the Gospels. And um, Saint Paul famously said, "We see through a lens darkly," right? Which means we see everything through our sense of identifications, our personal relationship to ourselves, right? And to the things we've acquired in life. Like for me, for an example, I'm an astrologer, right? I'm a parent. I'm a trans girl, right? I'm this, I'm that. All these things that we've acquired in life that aren't necessarily us. The central point, regardless of mediumship or anything else, the central point of existence is to understand your relationship to existence. Existence. Your own sense of being, consciousness. The fact that you're fucking here, to me, that's the central mystery of everything else. And things that take you out of that or distract you from that are ultimately a hindrance, right? Sort of what the Buddha was on about. Schizotypal makes discernment more difficult, so my lens is like a clay. And that's the difficult thing, Shani, for people like us who have, well, I'm not schizotypical, but, schizotypal, I'm sorry, schizotypal. No, but for those of us with different types of mental illness, it's a lot more complicated. And on the other hand, it's a lot more crucial. So for those of us who have had borderline issues or bipolar issues or whatever, there's a thing called DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy, right? And this is like self-inquiry to a certain extent. We question our experiences, we question our thoughts. Not everything is a fucking intuition, yo. A lot of things are just intrusive thoughts. Not everything we think is correct. And this is where I run into issues with clients involved in spiritual work or mediumship or whatever, as they just assume that all of their perceptions are correct. And that leads us to be abusive oftentimes of other people, because then we assume that they're lying to us and that only we know what's right, when we don't even know, right? So all of our personal lenses are clouded. We see through a glass darkly. We see through a lens darkly, don't we? Through the layers of our personal identifications, you know? Even to the extent like, well, I'm a gamer or whatever. I'm not a gamer, but, you know, you start interpreting things through that lens, right? So anyway, identification. That's the key word here. How much have we acquired in life that we identify with? How many overcoats do we put on that essentially hide us from ourselves? And that's the whole point of self-inquiry or self-observation, is to become aware of consciousness itself and how it arises, what it is, its nature, your nature. What are you, right? Consciousness, yeah. Can two people ever really understand each other, or is it all lenses? That's an amazing, we got to get to the next chart, but this is an amazing question that Dr. Morris Nichol addresses in his book, Living Time and the Revelation of the Life, or sorry, the Integration of the Life. Very good book. Do I have to show this to someone? I should show this to all of you. Living Time. Very, very good book. I suggest you all get this. My copy is very old. Dr. Morris Nichol, Living Time and the Integration of the Life. But he talks about this in here, that we're all invisible to each other because none of us sees the torrent of thoughts, feelings, and sensations crisscrossing, colliding, right, within each other, that we identify as ourselves. We only see the appearance on the outside. But is it possible that we get to know each other more and more beyond these sorts of lenses? That's about recognition, isn't it? It's about recognition. Two people recognizing each other. Two people consciously recognizing each other in the midst of all those clouded lenses, you see? And it's not the lens itself that's wrong or anything. The lens is neutral, it's ambivalent. It's all the dust that gets collected on it through identification. So yeah, I think it's possible for two people to know each other. I just think it's extremely unlikely. And in a way, I guess it's never really possible because we're always just approximating things. But now let's get back to the crux of it. What this really should admonish us in, though, what the lesson really should be here, though, is that we can't take appearances for granted. And we can't assume that we really know anyone, right? And we're constantly surprised by other people's thoughts and behavior that sort of come out that we didn't think were characteristic of them. You know, but we don't see anyone else's rich inner life, do we? We can be, with my own practice, I have to help people, you know, express and articulate and interpret their experiences through the lens of their chart and their spiritual lives and everything else, of course. And I think there's no better person to help with a spiritual problem than someone who's not spiritual, but has lots of experience in it. Because then they can approach it with a bit more objectivity, you see. My appearance shows nobody my inside, and that now seems like it's a universal situation. I mean, no, we have to express our insides. That's why we speak. That's why we speak, express, write, whatever. Volumes have been written about how we feel, right? Because people can't just see us and see it immediately, right? We have to make that known because no one lives in our heads, you see? So that's why I'm cautious about psychic phenomena, because in the New Age community, it leads to all sorts of spiritual abuse and gaslighting, right? Assuming you know what people are thinking and feeling when you don't. So anyway, please like the stream, subscribe to my channel. We're now getting to, who's the next person? Who's the next person? Who's the next person? We could look at Shani, or here's RN. 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 I didn't mean to go off on a tangent or a rant about that sort of stuff. It's just really important because there's so much nonsense in the spiritual community. And yeah, I'm an astrologer and my number one goal is to like build my business and shit. But I also see myself a little bit as someone who's been doing spiritual work and gone through spiritual groups for 28, 29 years now. And at least trying to give some of the benefit of my experience. And also the benefit of the experience of the people you will interact with, right? So that we don't go around just assuming that we know people when we don't really. And yes, we are all invisible to each other. Ultimately, we are. And no, someone asked if this was Vedic readings, and no, these aren't Vedic readings because I don't practice Vedic astrology. And I disagree with using the sidereal zodiac for birth charts. I completely disagree with using it for birth charts. It works for people in the context of Vedic, I suppose. I just think it's wrong, like philosophically wrong. I think it's fundamentally wrong. But that's just me. I think using the sidereal zodiac for horoscopes is fundamentally wrong. And I know the whole country of India is going to yell at me. Especially Narendra Modi. Awful person. Awful person, Modi. Trinidad. Hold on. San Fernando, Trinidad. Cancel. Cancel. God damn it. I hate solar farm. San Fernando. Trinidad. Yeah. Trinidad. There we go. Trinidad and Tobago, it said. I hope that's correct. See, I had Shani says my tangents are usually insightful, to be fair. I mean, they are. They are. I think they serve a purpose in a lot of this stuff. I'm going to have to clip that for later. So anyway, I hope this is RN's correct information. Are you still here, RN? Are you still here? Is RN still here? I'm going to start talking about your chart, RN, but if you don't answer soon, I'm going to move on to someone else because we want to give everyone an opportunity. We want to give everyone an opportunity for their chart. So for RN, it's the Scorpio rising, Mars and Pluto conjunct. See, this is fun because you have Mars conjunct Pluto in the first house. And it's interesting because Mars is very happy in his home sign of Scorpio, right? Saturn's here too in the first house, which makes things a bit more complicated. I mean, your first house is sort of like, oh, you got both malefics in there, really. Goodness gracious. And in a night chart. When I see Mars in the first house, I think of someone who's driven and self-directed, perhaps more assertive. Sometimes we see people who have like, good leadership qualities on the one hand, but people who can also be arrogant and imposing, right? Thinking that they're always right, telling people what to do on the other hand. But when I see Saturn in the first house too, I think a little bit of the opposite. I think of people who are unsure of themselves, people who look for their value through other people, people who look for their self-worth through relationships and partners, you see? So that's something to be aware of. Now your sun is Aquarius, right? You have Pluto on your sun right now, kind of going back and forth, back and forth. So this is a life-changing time for you as well. Because Pluto is going back and forth over your sun, I think like 4 or 5 times total since last year. So this is totally sort of demolishing your personality in many ways. It's like a deconstruction, of how you thought you were, what you thought you were. And it can be quite painful in many ways. Like you get faced with stuff up from the depths of your trauma and whatever else. And look, you have the North Node in the 8th house, which also sort of indicates that, doesn't it? Sort of needing to bring all that stuff up from the bottom, to process stuff. You see, when the North Node's in the 8th house, the life is slowly about learning to let things go. Learning to let things go. You see? And on top of that, you have a 12th house moon. It's a Libra moon. I'm a Libra moon too. We like to be liked. We like to be appreciated and valued and all that sort of stuff. In fact, it can make us into little people pleasers. We don't like to rock the boat. We just want to, I want people to feel good about me. I want people to treat me well, I believe in what's fair. But when I see a 12th house moon, I oftentimes think of people who have struggled with mental health issues, struggled with substance abuse issues, or addiction type things. And I think of people who are sort of reclusive, sometimes neurodivergent, socially awkward, having a difficult time connecting with people. Libra moon loves connecting with people, but in the 12th house, it's absolutely terrifying, you see? Because you could be vulnerable. And that's something you have to learn with an 8th house North Node, is how to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I think that's a big lesson that's happening right here with all this. You were born just a few months after me, actually. Look at you. Right? But that's a key thing here with Pluto going over and over your sun a bunch of these times. And then Mars has just gone into your seventh house, right? And Mars is square your sun right now too. So this is not a fun time for you. Like in general, this is just sort of, this is a few weeks of probably feeling a bit agitated, grumpy, angry, right? Down, depressed, not sure why, right? But it's this underlying, remember, the planets aren't causing anything for you. They're indicators, they're correlations of what's going on sort of in our external and internal experiences. You see? So you're going to probably have conflicts in your romantic partnerships or your long-term relationships. So just watch saying stuff that you couldn't take back later. If you're not in a relationship, you could see yourself really wanting to get in one. That often happens too. You could also see sports competitions or rivalries with the Mars in the seventh house thing. But being that Chiron is in your seventh house, you know, I think learning how to trust people is a big part of this life motif. Learning to trust people, right? It's hard when you don't even trust yourself, isn't it? So anyway, Pluto square Mars, you have to watch out for eruptions in marriages and spousal relationships or partnerships, I suppose. So that's a big thing. Now remember, Jupiter's also going through your eighth house at this time for the next year. So that's really helpful with self-analysis and self-inquiry. Sometimes it literally results in benefit from someone else's death, because the eighth house is death, and Jupiter's like good stuff, you know, wealth and abundance and all those sorts of things. So that could literally be a thing, you know. But psychologically, I see it more as having to face things, allowing yourself to fall apart while you process complex traumas and experiences from your youth. And by processing, I mean allowing yourself to feel that stuff, right? Sometimes it's important to question and to intellectually analyze things. And other times it's more beneficial just to sit there with them and let them wash over you, right? Let yourself cry for no reason, right? It's not that there's no reason, it's just that there's no rational reason. Because experiences, they get more obscure in our memories as we get further distance from them. But the reality of those feelings doesn't diminish, does it? So whether or not we remember things even correctly, the important part is the feeling, right? Allowing yourself to feel that feeling. And then we can analyze and intellectualize stuff. What is the super sticker? I think it's the same thing as this. I think it's still a donation. I think it's another. I don't really know what a super sticker is, but I think it's like a super thanks or a super chat. And those are very much, very much, very much appreciated. So anyway, there's good stuff going on here. We should move on to the next person, though. So after RN, Shani, did we want to talk about you? Shani, should we talk about... Yeah, Shani, I'm going to have to start coming in, you know, during this time more. Now that I have to manage my time more, you know. I've got to manage my time a lot better. Here. So anyway, let's go to... who's the next person? The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. Let's go back here. The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. Okay, we're going to do Shani, and then we're going to get to the next person. So we're doing Shani. And then we're doing Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Oh, it is your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. That was from The Simpsons, like one of the original Simpsons episodes, like in 1989. with Michael Jackson on it. And they do the song, Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Rory's going to be laughing. Lisa, it's your birthday. Okay, we're going to go to Shani, and then we're going to go to Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Oh, wait, Shani should already be in here. Shani. The Shani. I want to do Shani in an Irish accent for some reason, which is probably not a good idea. Where the fuck is Shani, yo? I know I have Shani's chart somewhere from last time. And thank you all of you who like keep returning. Shani and Ms. Colston especially, you guys really, both of you really helped me keep all this going. You're big supporters. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Shani. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Colston. Now, if only I can find your fucking chart. Shani. I know I had it, Shani. Where is it? Where is Shani? Oh, there it is. Okay, I kept passing it. I always talk about self-observation, but I'm not the most observant person. Lisa says they're old enough to know Lisa Simpson. Please like the stream. Subscribe to my channel. So Shani, you also have Scorpio rising like the last person. The same sort of stuff applies. Do you want me to? No, I have it, Shani. I have it, Shani. Thank you. Thank you, Shani. And there's a delay here with the video and the chat. So I'm sorry, there's a delay here. So I'm not seeing your responses till like 30 seconds after you send them or something. I don't know why there's such a big delay. Shani, your Saturn is on my ascendant. That's so interesting. And your moon is on my sun. Your moon is on my sun. And your Saturn is on my ascendant. We would be great friends, albeit probably karmic ones. I hate that word. Why did I just say karmic? You know what I mean? Like there would be in sort of an intense relationship around self-development and all that. But anyway, we have Pluto on top of your Saturn, right? And we have Mars having just entered your 7th house. We talked about the splits and all that sort of stuff in your past, right? In past live readings. But the other thing too, right, is Jupiter's on top of your moon. And I really do like this for you because I bet you've been through some difficult relationship stuff, right? Since 2022, because you had eclipses, right, in your 7th and 1st house. And I think a lot of this stuff with Jupiter and the moon and everything else over your 8th house is bringing up painful things that you have to address, you know. And there could be good luck or benefit from it. Remember, this is a whole year-long thing, right? Happy solar return, Lisa. Yeah, Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. But Pluto square Mars. Now, I can't remember if you're in a relationship or not. I think there was a big breakup, if I'm not mistaken, or something painful like that happened. But this could also be the time that sort of pushes you into... I mean, Venus was in there already, right? Hopefully making you sparkle a little bit. Relationships have nearly been the death of you. You wouldn't change those experiences. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, right? Unfortunately. Venus is your... Excuse me. Venus is your 7th house ruler. And Venus is square Pluto, right? Venus is square Pluto. So very literally, relationships have almost been the death of you, right? It's a tough one. At least that's what I'd expect, anyway. In career and everything has been quite difficult too, because the sun rules your 10th house and is in the 12th. But you see, you would probably find some modicum of success or recognition by, being somewhat of a confidant or a healing influence on other people, perhaps. It's yes and no. I'm exclusive to someone, but circumstances mean we can't be together right now. Well, so if that's the case, it's going to be exceedingly frustrating for the next month or so until, what is that, mid-July, when Mars goes into Gemini? I believe it's mid-July. Let's just double check. Happy birthday, Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. So the end of July, like July 20th or whatever, Mars finally goes into Gemini. But so you might feel a particular strain. Maybe the strain of not being together causes a rift or separation. Mars cuts things off. So I really hope there isn't a split. But you just have to be aware that things that you say and do now will be extra volatile in terms of those relationships. And maybe something has been feeling like it pushed you into a corner. Or perhaps you've been the Pluto person and you've been pushing someone else to a corner, you see? So it's very important to listen to our partners at this point right now. And to make our own desires and experiences known and be truthful about them. I'm actually training to be a hypnotherapist and Soma Sense practitioner with a long way to go. Well, you see, that's sort of interesting that you say that, because what? That's the 10th house ruler and the 12th house sort of stuff, isn't it? Being a healer of some sort in terms of, mental health or whatever. So that's really interesting, because that might be a really good path for you, you see? And Mars rules what? Mars rules your 6th house and your 1st house. So that's the thing you have to remember about all these things, is these Mars transits are always going to involve your sense of identity in some way, right? So, and the 4th house is your past. So things from your past get drawn up and they shatter your identity or your sense of identity and force you to look at it in a new way and to experience yourself in a new way, Both have had to step back a bit. Yeah, see, that doesn't surprise me. I think that's very characteristic of this sort of thing. And sometimes space is healthy, right? Space is healthy for us to start thinking, and right? Especially with more sensitive constitutions, right? Space is good because it helps us to understand our own feelings. But the Mars stuff will always involve your sense of identity. So there could be this push-pull thing between your own need for confidence and assertion and your need to maintain a harmonious relationship. And harmony at the expense of your own authenticity and truth is not really harmony. It's merely masking. It's shoving things down, you see. So I think that's all important stuff for you. I hope that was useful. That was kind of general, I suppose. But, I mean, really, relationships are being highlighted here. And implicit in that is your relationship to yourself and how you treat yourself. How you treat your own confidence. How you treat your idea of self. Do you keep trying to assert other people over you? Do you keep trying to, like, selfishly martyr yourself? Like, what was that song by The Offspring, right? Self-esteem. He says, the more you suffer, the more it shows you really care. Right, yeah. I always bring that up. But it's the same thing. It's the impulse to believe that suffering is a service. And it's not. Not necessarily. It can be. But conscious, wise suffering applied, right, with understanding um, can be service, right, in the right context. Like, anyway, we don't need to get into all that. But most of the time, we're trying to alleviate our own sense of guilt through a lot of these things. And we're just causing ourselves more suffering, really, as a masturbatory exercise. I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but I've done it quite a bit. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. I hope that was okay, Shani. I know that was kind of general. But I did talk about some of that same stuff in another chart. So, you know. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Wait, Shammy. Who's Shammy Blunt? Shammy Blunt. Shammy Blunt. We still have you too. Where's Shammy Blunt? Did we miss Shammy Blunt? We'll do Shammy Blunt first. I'm sorry, Lisa. We got to get Shammy. I didn't realize that we missed Shammy. And then we'll get Lisa for your birthday. Shammy. Don't worry, we'll get you all. We'll get you all. Just like Pokemon. Gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Cape Town, South Africa. Cape Town, South Africa. South Africa. I had next door neighbors growing up from South Africa. Sorry, I make fun of South Africa. I'm sorry. When I think of South Africa too, I often think of great white sharks. I have a weird thing about sharks because I grew up in California, in the water, in the ocean. And we have another Pisces rising here, like my brother. Pisces, it's your rising. And you have your North Node in Pisces, and Saturn is going through Pisces. In fact, Saturn right now is conjunct your North Node, or has been. You see? Or has been. When Saturn goes through your first house, it's a really momentous occasion, albeit not quite comfortable. And you do have a night chart, meaning you were born at night while the sun was below the horizon. So Saturn will be a more difficult planet for you. You have Saturn in the 10th house and retrograde. So life direction is something that comes later in life, doesn't it? You know? Oftentimes it feels like a late bloomer, like we don't know what we want to do, you know? I don't know, maybe I want to do this or that. And like all of a sudden you're 40. And stuff often starts to make more sense as you get to your late 30s, early 40s. And interestingly enough, in modern astrology, that's considered the second nodal return, when the North Node stuff really starts to take precedence in your life. That's the one modern astrological thing I still really like and use, is sort of some of the modern approaches to the nodes. Now, this sort of indicates needing to build a secure, stable, integrated, confident, strong personality. It's about cultivating and achieving confidence. And I say achieving confidence because confidence comes through achievement, through doing things, right? Through doing things. Your sun is in the 6th house. It's in Leo, very happy sun, but it's in the 6th house where we face lots of opposition, right? We face struggles and enemies and all that sort of thing. Nothing ever comes easy to these kinds of people, does it? So, Saturn going through the 1st house, though, and being this close to your North Node is important because it's forcing you to look at a lot of these things that you've sort of hidden from yourself, right? When Saturn went through my 1st house, I say this all the time, I came out as trans. Right? We start thinking about our own mortality, right? We start to feel older, sometimes wiser, more mature, but often we also start to contemplate death, our own death. We can have big, big changes in our appearance and our health, right? Because the 1st house is all of us. It's, you know, mind, body, spirit. So we see chronic health conditions come up that we have to deal with. Now remember, this is going to be going on until what? Like midway through next year. I guess about a year left of this. So you just got to settle into it, and you've already been feeling it. Just remember, this is the backdrop. Now, in terms of the Mars square Pluto stuff, we've got Aquarius here in your 12th house. So you see it's sort of blowing up your mental health things. Once again, pulling stuff out from the depths. Meanwhile, Mars has just entered your 3rd house, right? When Mars is in your 3rd house, you got to watch out from saying fucked up shit. Like, we have a tendency to say mean things a lot more. We have a tendency to get in fights and road rage. Please watch out. Please watch yourself when you're driving. I'm saying this for me too, because this happened to me when, Mars was touring my 3rd house. You need to pay attention while driving. You can have accidents. I didn't have any accidents, but thank God I didn't, Pay attention. Pay attention. Very important. But the interesting thing about this is that Mars rules the 2nd house and the 9th house. So you see the sort of eruptions highlighted here have to do with your spiritual life or your sense of values and also your financial life. So you may have spent too much money recently, and then Mars changing signs has to settle all accounts, So you might find yourself having to pay things back or to, pay some bills. But also you really want to be careful about the 2 things I said, about explosions verbally. It could be with extended family, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins. And it could relate to what you believe. It could involve your worldview and your sense of values, So that's quite important. We got to get to Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. But the one last interesting thing I'll say is that you're having your Jupiter return right now. Jupiter's on top of your natal Jupiter. Right? Jupiter's not happy in Gemini, so it does indicate you've probably had difficulties in your career, regardless of Saturn being there. There may have been some weird twists and turns, or you may have not gotten so lucky, or lost some jobs, things like that. But with Jupiter going through your 12th house, or through your 4th house now, rather, of the home, the family, the private life, right? Family legacy, genealogy, the father. You could see a situation with your dad improve. You could. That could be a very literal thing. But Jupiter rules your 1st house also. So this could be some real positive changes in your identity, you see. Sometimes you could get luck or benefit or even some money from something having to do with your father or family legacy. The 4th house is also generational wealth. You could get a payout of some sort, right? Or an investment from your family or an inheritance thing or whatever, you see? So just be aware of that. There's beneficial stuff going on. It could also have to do with your living situation, finding a new place, finding a new home, right? So anyway, let's go on to Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Please like the stream if you haven't already. Please like the stream, like the stream. Like the stream, like the stream. Like the stream. Like the stream. Happy birthday, Lisa. Excuse me. Happy birthday, Lisa. 11:22. 11:22 p.m., not a.m. What did I say that? Hartford. Connecticut. 11:22 p.m. 11:22 p.m. I like doing this during the day better. I have way more energy. I much prefer doing this during the day. I much prefer doing this during the day. I really do. Lisa, it's your birthday. I just want to make sure it's PM. Okay. Okay, hopefully we have all your stuff correct. Look at you, Aquarius rising like me. I'm a 1 degree and you're a 4 degree, so our risings are conjunct by just a few degrees. We would probably get along. And your Mercury is conjunct my Sun and my Mars, so we would probably get along. We would probably get along. And look, you also have your North Node in the first house, right? Conjunct Mars very closely. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah, I much prefer doing this during the day now. I think I'm going to do this more often. I'm going to do this more often. I have so much more energy. I'm so much more pleasant. At night, I'm like spewing fire at people, you know? Look at you. You've got Venus conjunct Saturn. You terribly awkward person, you. You are an awkward lady. You are very awkward. And in the 4th house. So I wonder, see, when I see Saturn in the 4th house, I think of someone who had an abusive or absent father, oftentimes. But Venus is the ruler of the 4th house in the 4th house. So I imagine, she's very happy. So I imagine there was a mixed relationship with your father, you know, a mixed type relationship. Maybe you loved him very much and he just wasn't around enough, you know, or, you know, maybe you respected him, just he wasn't very nice or wasn't there. But there's a weird sort of duplicity, if you will, to your relationship with your dad that it looks like, you know, both abusive and absent. Was there something that you really liked about your father with the Venus stuff? You know? Lisa says, yes, love him. So, I mean, there's sort of that weird sort of dichotomy there with, everything seems to be founded on contradictions, doesn't it? So we have these contradictory views and experiences of our fathers. Because he was too mean but wounded. I mean, it's amazing when we can have empathy for the abuse our parents put on us, right? And we have to be quite aware, you know, we have to be quite aware that we don't replicate some of those abusive tendencies as we get older because they feel normal to us, right? Because they feel normal to us. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting to me. But on the other hand, you see, with Venus conjunct Saturn, it can make us quite awkward, right? It can make us quite awkward. And with Venus opposite Jupiter, it can make us quite self-indulgent, right? Saturn rules your 1st house too, and is in the 4th house, indicating something about your family legacy, genealogy, your ancestors or traditions are very important to your own identity. Maybe you're very interested in your family past or the culture of your background or your ethnicity, something like that. We see people who are very interested in the ancestors stuff. And I make fun of some of that stuff, but it doesn't have to be like a cheesy. It can be like, you know what? Like, I'm of Irish descent and I really connect to like Celtic history or whatever, or, you know, Irish history or something like that, or mystical practices, you know? Like for me, I have Mercury in the 4th house and I was extremely into the Irish tradition growing up, and Newgrange, right? One of the oldest megalithic sites in the world, at least it was for a while before Göbekli Tepe, you know? Anyway, I'm just mentioning that there's this also, it seems like there's this, on the one hand, rejection, and on the other hand, nostalgia for something about your ethnic or family tradition in some way. Sometimes we feel alienated from it. But that's interesting to me. Everything, though, is focused on you, this North Node thing, creating an integrated and powerful personality, right? You might be quite popular with an 11th house moon. But anyway, the Pluto stuff is in your first house, right? Pluto's going to be going over your ascendant, like it is for me, right, for a while. It's crossing my ascendant 5 times. I don't know about yours if it's that many, but you still have Pluto approaching your ascendant. And this is a big fucking deal because it totally remakes us. Like, I've been going through this right now. My appearance has been changing, even more, even though I'm already trans and everything else. But the transition deepens. So we see it's about personal power and our relationship to power as well. If we've misused that in any way, it'll blow up in our faces. You see? If we've been misused by it, we'll see the effects of that really come to fruition. You see? And I can tell you from my own life right now, issues with dominance and submission in relationships and all that has been very much highlighted, because I'm into the kink world and all that. And learning about my own submission has been a big part of that. Not merely just trying to assert myself or be dominating, but also to feel what it's like to be dominated and the freedom that comes from submission, you see. There's a big thing about death and surrender with all this sort of stuff. It's letting things die and letting things fall away, right? This is one of the most people don't get to have this in their entire lives. So please enjoy this. And it will be rough, probably. It will not be over quickly. You shall not enjoy them. That was from 300. It's awful. But you see what I'm saying, right? It's a deconstruction and being built back up in a new way. You could also see health stuff, so take care of yourself with this. But the whole point with the square here could involve your father once again. Unless your father's already passed away. Right? Unless your father's already passed away. You would love to learn to surrender, submit, and let go. You don't totally do it. Like, it doesn't just, it's not like it's done. It's a lifelong thing. We're always learning to let things go. Right? Like Paul McCartney said, live and let die. Right? We're living to let things die. We live, we progressively unfold to life as we let things go. We're not so much afraid of death, are we? As we are afraid of life. That is the key fear here. I've said that in other videos, But it's the fear of life that really holds us back, isn't it? How much don't we do that we wish we could because we are afraid? We're afraid of, the pain or the effort or what people will think of us, you see? Pluto takes us out of that fear by plunging us further into it, right? Remember the Pluto Persephone story? He was afraid to let go. He was afraid to let Persephone go so that she would freely come back to him. This is the choice during this transit for us, you and me, Lisa, to freely let ourselves go. Bit by bit, it's a progressive effort. It doesn't just happen overnight. So that we progressively emerge into a greater and fuller, more authentic condition of ourselves. So that we learn to take the courage to do what we wish we could do, to do what we want to do what's fulfilling to us. Because you could die at any fucking moment, and that's what Pluto shows us. You could die at any fucking minute. There are techniques in astrology to try and gauge the length of life, but you don't really know, do you? So Pluto crossing the ascendant is admonishing us to take now. You only have right fucking now. That's all you have. So use right now, right? Do it now. I don't mean be stupid, Don't make uncalculated risks. But have a little bit more courage and a little bit more inner fire to do the things that you wish you could do and that you know you should do. I identify with Persephone too, ironically. Well, you know, the Persephone story was itself sort of derivative of the story of Inanna, my mama Inanna, who was the prototypical Venus from ancient Sumer, you see, and ancient Mesopotamia in general, Sumer and Akkad. So you've had two NDEs, two near-death experiences, right? So that should hopefully show you. I've had lots of clients who have near-death experiences, but ultimately that doesn't, it should help you, but it doesn't always help you conquer the fear of death, or even more importantly, the fear of life. So to me, this is sort of saying, let go of the past, right? Let go of the past hurts and family stuff with your father or whatever, and make your home. Home is where you make it. Home is wherever you are. That's the lesson with Saturn in the fourth house. Home is where you are, right? I remember in The Water Boy, I hate that fucking movie too. I love Fairuza Balk. Yes, please, mommy. But in The Water Boy, I remember the guy says, home is where you make it. And he's like, you like to see homeboys naked? No, home is where you make it. You know. So this is an exciting time. Lisa says, I'm so past oriented. You'd think it would show me, but I still haven't let go and lived. Yes, exactly. Yeah, but this is always a progressive thing in life. We have to be reminded all the time. Like, let go. We all grasp onto things, me especially. More than anything, it's the idea about ourselves. But you see, it's so interesting to me that you've got the North Node conjunct Mars, which is cutting things off from yourself, right? And also learning to develop an integrated, strong personality. And then Pluto's on top of that. And at this time in your life, you know, let's see, 40 years would have been 50 years. So 50, I'm trying to see how old you are. What, like 53? Is that what you are, like 53? So this is really the most important time in your life, because our 50s are where we really start to get stuff done. Before then, we're just kind of all over the place, aren't we? Yeah. And I'm saying that as someone who's 40. So anyway, that was Lisa. We beat Lisa's chart to like a horse. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. I hope that was useful, Lisa. You're 53. See, you're not too far away from your second Saturn return. Your second Saturn return is sort of like, I mean, to me, it's like, what have I done in life lately? You know, what have I done? What have I accomplished so far? And what can I do now? Because this is the real, to me, this is the real midlife nowadays for a lot of us in the West, is the 50s. And that's where we really have to make things count, bring things into fruition, and actually do stuff and accomplish things. So that was Lisa. That was Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. And we did Shammy. Shammy, shammy, Cocoa Pop. Shammy, shammy, rock. Shammy, shammy. Oh, Lisa, you said so much here. Oh my gosh, let me see what you're saying. S. Schultz. S. Schultz. Yes, health, deconstruction, buildup, identify. I love her too. I'm going to die. If I'm going to die, I need to live first. That's the thing. Thank you. I love the beating. Like a horse. Sag moon. I know. It's funny. My mom's a Sag moon. And Trump is a Sag moon. We see Sag moon people be a bit crazy, don't we? A little bit wacky. Just all over the place. They can be sort of mystical, philosophical, and all that sort of thing. But they just tend to be all over the place, don't they? Very non-committal. Very non-committal. So, I mean, as a fixed rising sign, I would suggest picking a course of action and sticking to it for a bit. Jupiter's going through our fifth house right now. So, like, honestly, learn to have fun. You have a fifth house sun like I do. And you have a fifth house Mercury. So you may have overdone the fun as a kid. You know, you're a full moon baby too, you see. Born on a full moon. So you may have had a tendency to overdo it. You're probably sort of a party girl, I bet. Party girl. Lisa the party girl. Not a potty girl, a party girl. Party girl. But now that you're a bit older, you know, enjoy yourself again, because this transit with Jupiter going through our fifth house over the next year is about having fun and having romantic liaisons and stuff like that. You see? You see? Anyone else? Is there anyone else? Please like the stream. Please like the stream and subscribe to my channel. Please, please, please. We're going to be doing more of these lives and more during the day. Pick a course of action. Yes, I do need to have fun because, yes, I did overdo it. I mean, that tends to happen with Venus opposite Jupiter, right? Venus opposite Jupiter and the Sag moon, right? Venus opposite Jupiter is very self-indulgent. Like, yes, I can have another drink. Yes, I can have another cupcake. Yes, I can have some more gummies, you know? So, I hope that was a good birthday present, Lisa. I hope that was a good birthday present. And I just want to make sure that we go back over, in general, the fact that Pluto is square Mars right now. And as we said, Pluto square Mars, the key word for me is eruptions, right? We talked about the Hades and Persephone myth. We talked about the symbolism, right, of Pluto pushing and pushing and pushing, manipulating, right? Trying to control. Sometimes, you know, through manipulation or through underhanded means. It's not always overt, like, do this. Sometimes it's very underhanded. Sometimes it's very passive aggressive. And sometimes it's very subliminal, right? So we have to make things clear. We have to make things very clear to ourselves during these sorts of transits so that we're not just exploding willy-nilly. We have to be aware of why we've been pushed into a corner, why we're feeling this way. Because otherwise, we're going to spread our angst and our anger indiscriminately onto people who don't deserve it. And we could ruin our own relationships. We could cause ourselves lots of unnecessary pain through being impulsive and reactionary and reactive rather than proactive, right? Or conscious and responsive. So the key word here, or the key phrase and the key idea is to take a step back, to think before you act, to recognize pressure building up in yourself before you have the explosion. Mars is like a tea kettle. Yeah? Or think of it like a Coke can or a soda can of some sort, right? And you leave it in heat. And the heat just keeps accumulating, right? And the pressure keeps building up on the inside, right? Like liquid hot magma, you know, building up under the surface, or your skin oil and sebum, you know, making this zit on your face. It needs pressure release, you see? We need to let off steam from the kettle. Otherwise, it boils over and creates a much bigger mess that we didn't want to deal with. So please be aware. I hope that is useful. S. Schultz says, Joe Dirt. Yeah, it was Joe Dirt. Okay, yes, it was Joe Dirt. And I'm like, I'm ashamed that I even know that movie. It's one of the movies that used to be on Comedy Central all the time when my brother and I were younger. And so we used to like watch it super high. You know, Joe Dirt. Home and where you're making. Yeah, okay, so that's what it was. It was Joe Dirt. And that was funny. Christopher Walken was in it. He's like, yo, you're talking to my man all wrong here. You do it again, we'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron. I don't do a great Christopher Walken impression, but I'm just trying to make myself laugh. And that's another indication, too, of Pluto square Mars, right? That reactivity. You're talking to my man all wrong here. Diplomacy isn't always good, and sometimes action, and even, I don't want to say violent, but like even righteous anger or conflict is due, right? Sometimes you have to have it. But don't let it have you, right? Don't let it have you. Don't let it tell you what to do. The distinction here is between conscious and unconscious action, between conscious recognition and allowing ourselves to be unconsciously moved and used and shaken about like a plastic bag in the wind, you see? Don't let life grab you by the titties and push you around, tell you what to do. You want to make your own conscious choices that work for you, that come from your awareness of how you're developing as a person, and who you want to be, and what you want to do, and how you want to relate to others, you see. So anyway, it's been 2 hours now. I love you all. Thank you very much. I much prefer doing this shit during the daytime. I hope you do too. I'm going to try and do it more frequently at this hour, because later is just... But see, the thing is when I do this, a lot of you people will be at work. So that's the other thing. I guess I should do Sundays earlier in general, except for once a month on Sundays, I have my spiritual group. So won't work every Sunday. My goal here is to do this like Sunday mornings, Monday mornings, Tuesday mornings, and Wednesday mornings. I would like to do those 4 days, you see. And then do my, my grown-up streams. And then do readings during those other hours. So, Shani, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I always enjoy you. I always enjoy you. Lisa, I'm glad you liked it. Aries, checkmate, I hope you enjoyed yourself too. Where'd you go? S. Schultz. And Shammy Blunt, thank you. All of you who were here. Nina, and RN, all of you, please and thank you. I love you. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to go clean my house now before a very gorgeous young lady comes over. Because I want it to be relatively... See, these cats, they mess all this shit up. I want it... See, it's very hot out today and everything. Oh my gosh. See, it's hot out today. Gosh, it's been like scorching in Denver. And I have a very, very gorgeous young lady coming over. So I want it to be nice, you see. Anyway, love you. Mwah.